Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Naishad Gadani, and I'm coming to you live from Melbourne. And today is 159th episode of Career Care Package. And today we are discussing how I changed my life, life-changing career stories, and particularly inspiring stories of resilience. And to really help us unpack this very timely topic, we could not find anyone better than Simon Finnick. I heard Simon last year around July, August, when I was attending a social traders enterprise conference in Melbourne. And he came up to talk about how work changed his life. And I think that the speech went on for 12 to 13 minutes. In those 12 to 13 minutes, if you drop a pin, you can hear the sound. It was absolute pin drop silence. I think most of us left with moist eyes on that day, and what rightly so. Simon's story is an absolutely inspirational story, but there is also a lot of learning as well, which is why we have called Simon to help us unpack this very interesting. I know Simon has also penned in a book called Breaking Good, which is very different to the Netflix show that you have seen, Breaking Bad. And this is a fantastic book, and we will put the link also in the comment section for you to go and check out and buy that as well, because this is a story from somebody who has gone through unimaginable, adversities. And I say unimaginable because couple of things that he talked about in his in his speech where I just could not fathom in my wildest dream, as well. But what it shows is that you can still bounce back out of all these unimaginable adversities. So before we start to speak to Simon, let's welcome Caroline Brown.
Thanks, Nash. And I don't know what I can say to top that, but just to say, I sent out an email to my database from my blog, Simon, and I got about this talk. I got so many people come back and go, "Wow, that sounds really inspirational. Inspirational, and I really want to tune into that today." So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on board. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think maybe a great place to start would be tell people about what you're doing now, and then we'll sort of track back through your story, if that's
Sure.
okay. Yeah.
No problem. So currently I'm the operations manager with a business called Fruits of Work. Fruits of Work is a non-for-profit social enterprise that works with people who have come out of the justice system. In actual fact, everybody that works at Fruits of Work, from management across the board, have all been impacted by the justice system and have all turned their lives around.
Wow.
It's got an incredible success rate. To this date, in 4 years of operation, nobody has gone back to prison that has joined the Fruit to Work program.
Wow.
So it's got a 0% recidivism rate.
I can't say that word, but yes.
And when you consider that in Victoria, 47% of people that come out of prison in the first 2 years will go back, I think that we're doing something special. It's a very basic business. We deliver fruit, milk, and other things like coffee, tea, or pantry items now, to anywhere from infrastructure projects to offices, to factories, to stores. And every dollar that we make, we're not government funded at all, but every dollar we make goes back into giving a chance to somebody like myself who has come out of prison and really needs that second chance or that door to open for them to change their lives.
Wow, fantastic. So tell us your story. It's a really inspirational story, and it starts with an accident that you had.
Sure.
Did you have your own business, or you were working for somebody? And
I was working for somebody. I was working for a leading supermarket chain. So in 2008, I considered myself a very successful man. I owned a 50 square home. It was 5 bedrooms. It was double story. It was beautiful. I drove a Mercedes Benz. I rode a Harley Davidson. I had the perfect life, the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence. My life was grand. In actual fact, I think everything I touched really up until then sort of turned to gold. And it was nothing through sheer hard work, but I was very successful, I believe. And then once I had a great job. It was paying $130,000 a year. I only went to school to year 10. That was huge money for me.
Mm.
So, I was not on top of the world. I was a champion. I was a kickboxing champion. I was a South Pacific kickboxing champion, a 2 times Australian kickboxing champion. So I was fit as a fiddle.
Mm.
Um, and one day, whilst I was working in the warehouse, I was struck in the back with a forklift, and my 2 lower discs in my spine were damaged.
Yeah.
And that fitness, that healthy man had disappeared. I went from being very fit to being in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Um, I was in constant pain 24 hours a day. I don't know whether either of you have ever suffered chronic pain, but it just never leaves you. It's in your sleep. It's when you're awake. You can't stand up. You can't sit down. I couldn't do anything for too long. And after going through the doctors, going through physio, chiro, spinal therapy, hydrotherapy, acupuncture, I tried everything over a 12-month period, and nothing worked. In actual
Mm.
fact, I'd watch my wife go to work. I couldn't even take my kids to school, and I really started getting depressed. The doctors put me on 12 different medications, and I started getting suicidal thoughts because I felt useless as a man, useless as a father, useless as a husband.
Mm.
Um, and then one day, in the middle of the afternoon, a friend of mine rocked up, came to visit me because I disappeared from all my social scenes. I disappeared from my kickboxing scene. I disappeared from the guys I used to go riding bikes with. So I really became a homebody. And one day, out of the blue, a friend of mine or an acquaintance of mine rocked up, um, and he had some marijuana. And he said, you look like crap. This is supposed to be fantastic for pain. Give it a whirl. And I
Mm.
was desperate, and I would have tried anything, and I did. But the marijuana did me no favors. In actual fact, that when I tried the marijuana, I felt stoned, and that slowed everything down, and it actually intensified the pain for me. It was terrible. So I said, I can't do this. And not in any way in this story do I condone drugs in any way, shape, or form, because the end of the story is it ruins your life, right?
Mm.
But a few weeks later, the same friend come back, and he had some methamphetamine. He had some ice, and he said, "Try this," you know. And I watched him use the ice first, and I said, "That doesn't look too bad." There was no scary needles or anything like that. It was purely a smoke in a glass pipe. I said, I'll give that a whirl. And from the very first time I used ice, I was instantly addicted.
Mm.
The feeling that I got from that ice was amazing. Um, that depression, that darkness all disappeared. Yes, I wasn't cured. My back injury wasn't cured, but I felt a hell of a lot less pain. I was able to get up. I was able to do a few things. My confidence was a lot better. I rang up work and said, "Hey, I can come back on light duties," and my mind was going a million miles an hour. From that very first time you use ice, it releases 3 months worth of dopamines in that first go,
Wow.
and then it takes you 3 months to get them back. So you can imagine there's a common saying in the ice world, and that's a rooster one day. So you're a rooster the day you take ice, and then the
Yeah.
next day you're a feather duster because you
Yeah.
are completely depleted and drained.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my journey started. I thought I was smart, and I thought I knew more than the doctors. Um, ice made me feel good. So what I did is I started self-medicating on ice. My habit was at $50 a day. I threw all the doctor's medications in the bin, and I thought I've got this under control. I'll self-medicate $50 a day, and I'll be able to do a bit more. I'll feel a bit better. I'll feel better about myself. But little did I understand what the side effects and the repercussions were of getting into that ice world.
Mm.
Um, Very quickly, that habit from $50 went to 200, went to 300, went to 500. And I think at the end I was using between $1,000 and $1,300 a day, which led to another problem.
Yeah.
Not only was I mixing with a lot of unsavory characters, but then I had to try and support my habit. Now, again, in the drug world, you either deal or you steal. You either deal drugs or you thieve to to sustain your habit. Well, I never ever made much of a good thief, so I was pretty good with numbers. I thought I would start dealing drugs to
Mm.
maintain my habit. Again, that was just another step deeper, getting deeper and deeper, not only into crime, but, into the drug world. Um, Along the way, I was shot. I was shot in the thigh and I was stabbed 3 times in the back of the neck and I nearly died.
Yeah.
Whilst using ice, I lost my father, my mother, my brother, and my daughter in a very short period of time. Um, that led me to to just a deeper and darker area. Wanted to use more and more drugs, and have a little respect for the law or for life. I think the year that I lost my daughter, I had 5 suicide attempts,
Oh, yeah.
and it's only till recently, till we released the book, that I had realised that out of those 5 suicide attempts, at least 2 of those suicide attempts, I really did want to die. I
Yeah.
think the other 3 were more of a cry for help, but there was no help.
Mm.
Um, um, just getting myself into more and more trouble, and before I knew it, I ended up in jail. So,
Mm.
I got raided by the police probably about 3 times, and each time the police would find drugs. That would end me up in jail.
Mm.
So going from that 50 square home to the wife leaving, not wanting to have a bar with their dad because he was a drug addict, to all of a sudden I'm in a prison cell. From being that successful person to being a nobody in jail.
Mm.
You're in a prison cell which is tiny. You're bunked up with another guy. You're eating a meter from the toilet. You know, Sometimes while you were eating, your cellmate would use the toilet.
Mm.
That was the lowest point of my life. Jail was the lowest point of my life. Did I deserve to go to jail? I think I did.
Mm.
I think I'd lost my way that bad that only jail could have fixed me. Or a rehab, but I was never offered any sort of. I never had that sort of money. I never, I was never offered any sort of rehabilitation. So it was
Mm.
straight to jail for me. And whilst I was in jail, it was a big wake up call for me to be locked in a cell for 22 hours a day, coming down off all those drugs. I mean, you're not allowed to even have a cigarette in jail. So a big awakening call. Um, and all of a sudden it's come to me that my way isn't working anymore.
Mm.
The successful way I knew, the successful way I was brought up with beautiful parents, who really put a lot of time into me to be successful. My way wasn't working anymore. I had lost my way.
Mm.
So I knew I had to develop some skills very quickly for once I was released, which was a 12-month jail term. Once I was released, I had to learn some tools that I was going to cope on the outside. I was going to succeed. I needed to adopt something new because my way didn't work anymore.
Mm.
So I did as many programs and as many courses as I could in jail. And programs and courses aren't easy to get into in jail. It's really strange the way things work out. But I was sentenced 4.5 months into my prison term.
Mm.
So for the first 4.5 months, I was only allowed to do very short courses, 1 or 2 hour courses. And then by the time I was sentenced, I wasn't jailed long enough for me to do the long-term program.
Mm.
But some of those programs had the 7-month waiting list. So what I would do is basically go beg to the officers at their desk every day and say, look, can I at least get one day in here? Can I get a day in there? Are there any cancellations? Has anybody been released? Can I take somebody's spot? And if I got a good prison officer, they would make a phone call, because that's all they have to do, is
Mm.
make a phone call and try and get you in. And if you got a bad one, they would just tell you where to go.
Mm.
Um, I was very fortunate in the 12-month period that I was in jail. I completed over 23 programs, ranging from drug use to mental health, parenting, relationships. I really wanted to be released with tools.
Mm.
Once I was released from prison, I thought my life would be very easy to pick up, but that wasn't the case either.
Mm.
I thought because I had been successful before, I thought I could go straight back to that life. For one, I had to earn the respect back of my children, because I had lost that, because in that time I'd put drugs before my kids, as a lot of addicts do. Not that it's excusable, because if anything, for me is my biggest regret today, and that was putting drugs before my kids. So I had to earn respect of my children. I had to earn respect back of my brother. My wife had gone, so I accepted that. And I just had to try and pick my life back up where I had sort of left it. Um, I was released from prison with nowhere to go, so the jail had organised a boarding house for me. That was a putrid. It was absolutely a putrid accommodation. The accommodation where I thought I was going to start my new life. When I had knocked on the door to enter the accommodation, a lady had opened the door. She was clearly affected by heroin, slurring her words, one eye open, pointing me down the hallway, telling me where my room was, undoing three padlocks on the door, like Maxwell Smart, undoing these three padlocks on the door, and telling me that I have to lock my door every time I go to the toilet because everything gets stolen. The house stunk of alcohol, of empty beer bottles. And when she opened my door, she told me that my room stinks because the guy in the room next to me has mental health issues and urinates on the wall. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry. And sure enough, when she opened the door, that's exactly what I got. I got this big waft of urine. It was vomit material. It was terrible. She showed me the bed. The bed was just a mattress and base. It had a big, dirty brown blood patch on the mattress, and there were syringes on the carpet. And this is where I was supposed to start my new life. So that was a huge shock for me. My brother had driven me to the accommodation. He made it very clear that he would help me as much as he could, but he created a boundary that I wasn't to go live with him, which was fine. I mean, after all, he was a justice of the peace, and I'd just come out of jail, so it wasn't great for anybody. And I begged him not to stay in that accommodation, and he had put some money up and got me into a better boarding house, a drug-free boarding house, which was great, which was a start. But when I was released from prison, I wasn't released a free man either. I was released on a corrections order, and that corrections order meant I had to do a few requirements for the justice system. One of them was I had 380 hours community work to fulfill. I had to do a judicial monitoring, which meant I had to go before the judge once a month. I had to see my caseworker once a week. I had to do a mental health program. I had to do a men's behaviour program, and I had to do a drug and alcohol program. And most of those took 1 day a week, as well as try and get a job. Now, I was released from prison on Centrelink for the first time in my life. That was $520 a fortnight. The boarding house was $200 a week, and it left me $60 a week to survive on.
Wow.
That was tough. After the first week, generally I'd be broke and hungry. I was going to the Uniting Church for food parcels and the Salvation Army one week, Uniting Church another, because you're only able to get one food parcel a fortnight. Every job that I applied for, because they saw a criminal record, because they saw a back injury, and anyone that was even a quarter interested, as soon as they knew all my other requirements, the doors kept closing. I think I applied for 12 jobs and was unsuccessful to any. I was getting very desperate. And going back to dealing drugs, because I was released in my own suburb, going back to dealing drugs would have been a very easy option for me. But I knew that I would have, again, lost the respect of my kids. I knew that I would have most likely end up dead this time, or 100% I could have guaranteed that I was going to go back to jail. That was not going to happen for me. I never wanted to see the inside of a jail again. When I was at the end of my tether and very desperate, I went to see my caseworker and I explained to her my situation. I told her that I'm hungry. I told her that I'm broke. I told her that I can't get a job. And, I told her that I'm thinking about going back to dealing drugs. And by fluke, the company that I work for now, Fruit for Work, had put a flyer through for all the corrections officers saying, hey, if you've got somebody with an offending background, we've got one position available. We've got a job for somebody who wants a second chance. The company was very small at that time. They'd only just opened up. They were in operation for about 6 months. There was only one other guy working there and my boss. I applied for the job and I got the job. Now, getting that job, being offered that second chance, meant the world to me. It was 2 days a week. It was starting at 1:30 in the morning on the other side of town. It was picking fruit, and delivering them to offices. But that job meant the world. It meant, one, I got out of the house that I had isolated myself to, because I didn't want to get myself into any trouble. I didn't want to go to any pubs or clubs or anything like that. So I'd isolated myself in my bedroom for the first 12 months that I was released from prison. And that was like being in prison again to a certain degree. But I got this job. I started mixing with good people. I was wearing a high-vis uniform. I felt like a member of the community again. We'd have leftover fruit at the end of the day, and I'd be driving around the city, and I'd be stopping at all the homeless people and giving them the leftover fruit, and I felt great. Bringing home a pay packet meant the world. Letting my kids see that their dad is going to work, coming home in a high-vis uniform. I was entrusted with a company vehicle. I was entrusted with a fuel card. I was entrusted with passes to office buildings, exquisite office buildings in the city. I started regaining confidence. That pay packet meant that I could move out of that boarding house and into a shared house. It was just me and one other lady. That meant that I could have my kids over. So I was earning points all the time. I was getting my life back. I was able to fix my teeth. The Victorian Police were kind enough to smash all my teeth, so I was able to fix my teeth again, and which meant that I didn't have to smile with my hand over my mouth because I was so embarrassed. I could look at somebody in the face. People were always happy to see me because I was working. They didn't know my history. I didn't feel like a junkie anymore, and I didn't feel like a fool anymore. So my confidence started to grow. I found something that I was good at. I was able to relate to guys and girls who had come out of the justice system. And because I was fairly senior, I got to work my way up to being a team leader and help the guys and girls coming through the system. And before I knew it, I was offered the opportunity of being the operations manager, which has been life-changing for me because I've had a lot of say in helping guys and girls change their path. I've been a mentor to guys and girls who have been lost, just like I was. Today I've got a beautiful fiance. She's got children, so I've got a new family. I've got my kids back in my life. Now I've got a company car. We're renting our own home, and I feel like a millionaire. Yeah. I've got my life back.
Wow. It's such an inspirational story, and I mean, amazing kudos to you in all of that. And what do you think was the moment, because not everybody's able to do that. So what was there any one point for you that turned that around where you said you hit rock bottom in jail, but some people stay at rock bottom there. So what was it for you?
It was definitely jail. I wanted help and I needed help before jail. I definitely needed some sort of grief counselling. One of my biggest personal failures is it takes me a long time to accept things. So I never accepted the fact that I'd lost all that family, and then all I could do was concentrate on the family that I'd lost, not appreciate the family I still had left. Yeah. So once I got to jail and I'd done a few courses, I knew jail was rock bottom. I looked at guys in prison, and there's two types of guys in prison for me. There's guys who are in there that don't want to be in there and want to change their lives, and there's guys in there that really should stay in there for a very long time because they don't have no remorse about any crimes that they have committed and have no intentions of changing. So that was a big wake-up call. I knew that prison, that was the turning point for me. But I needed help. So I really had to try and get as much help as I could in the system, which was very hard. And there are plenty of drugs in jail too. I must say, if people think you go to jail, it's like a compulsory rehab. It's not, because there's just as many drugs in jail as there is out of jail. But I had to get my life back. So, and that was all hard work. Yeah.
And it's so inspirational. I think we got some comments. Balin says really inspirational, Simon. More remarkable is that you have decided to come out in the open to share your experience. Esha Lata also says the same, and Brooke says very powerful story, Simon. Continue to share your story with us. As well. We I think one of the thing that I can, I've worked in job services, job active before, and I had the opportunity to work with people who spent time in jail and then they've come out. One of the biggest thing for them is work, because in the absence of work, more or less we are, the mental health issues, having less money in your pocket, and that's where the rebound happens, where you start to say, you know what, I know a thing, I know how to make money because I've done that before also. How did you really kept that amount of, or a steadiness in your thinking? Because as you rightly pointed out, you did express that, to your caseworker, that you might just go back and do the same thing. What were some of the other things that you did that really stopped you going from the
I lost my
earlier
kids
life?
once. I didn't want to lose them again. I lost faith of the people that loved, the people around me that cared. They they forgot about me, and rightly so. Because what happens when you enter the drug world, you only surround yourself with other drug addicts. Anyone who's good for you in your life, you push away, mainly because you're ashamed and embarrassed, or they're not fun anymore because they're not the ones that have the drugs. So if trying to get my kids in my life wasn't enough of a deterrent, nothing was. Trying to earn the respect of the people that loved me, uh, nothing was a bigger deterrent than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree with you on that one. Because, Simon, what are some of your thinking, is in the COVID times where you've seen people, also going through a lot of pain right now when it comes to employment issues. I think for to work, we have also, briefly spoke about how you also tried to kind of pivot to where you can, continue to run your business, as far as usual as possible. What would be your, tips and thinking, about people who are right now struggling, may not necessarily with the background that you had, but just generally, what would you
I,
give it?
I
What would you
definitely haven't
tell
got a
them?
magic wand, and nor am I Mother Teresa, but the only thing I can really suggest to people is just never give up, never give up trying. Whether you're fighting mental health, addiction, money issues, never give up, because in my deepest, darkest hour, when I tried to suicide, you know, I would not be here today, and live the success and have the story that I have had I have succeeded. You know, it's just a fact of one day at a time, and not giving up. And even if you've got a loved one that is lost to addiction, that is lost to mental health, don't give up on them either. Because it only takes one person. For me, it was my brother. He's all I had left, and he could have quite easily walked away because I was a nuisance. I was trouble. But it just gave me that little bit of hope to want to do it for somebody who still cares for me. Even when my kids didn't want to borrow me, my brother still loved me. He still showed interest in me, and that meant that I had something to work for. Yeah, so basically, in a nutshell, one day at a time, and never give up, because there was always light at the end of the tunnel.
Simon, you spoke about your Aldi days with the car and the house and all of those things. And I imagine ingredients for happiness might look a bit different for you now. Like, what would you say is, having come through that experience, are the ingredients for being, happy and productive in your life?
Do you know, like I said, everything I had touched had turned to gold in my life, and maybe that was a bit of punishment for me too, because even though everything was so great, I don't think I really appreciated what I had.
Yeah.
I owned all those toys. I owned that beautiful house. Now I rent a house.
Mm.
But I am so appreciative of the people in my life. I'm so appreciative at the second chance I've got at life, because my days were done. My days were dark. For 5 long years, I wanted to die, and I would try and find ways, or think of ways how I was gonna end my life. Today, I wouldn't end my life for quids. All I want to do is live.
Mm.
You know, I've just lost 20 kilos. I've been running again for the first time in 20 years. Yeah, I appreciate flowers. I appreciate the springtime smell. I never appreciated that before. And,
Mm.
and I think COVID has maybe made a lot of people appreciate what they actually have in their homes, what they have with their families. Away from the 9 to 5 grind, where all you do is think about work, and you think about getting the bigger house and the better cars. I,
Mm.
I I think that COVID has made people really appreciate what they really have.
Mm. Yeah, when it's taken away. What about with Fruit to Work? What things do they have in place to support people make the same sort of transition that you do? Do they have a specific program that they run?
Yeah, well, we run a program where what we do in the first couple of weeks that we employ somebody, because one thing I didn't mention is we're a transitional employment program. So what we do is we keep the guys and girls for roughly around 6 months. If someone's not ready, they could stay there 12 months. If someone's advanced, they could go in 3. But what we do is when they enter the program, the first thing we do in the first week is sit down and say, what's your first 3 goals?
Mm.
What are the first 3 goals you want to achieve in the first month of working at Fruit to Work? And, some of them are very simple at the start. Being able to afford petrol in your car, wanting to pay board to their mothers or fathers, coming home in a high-vis uniform. And then in a month's time, we revisit that and say, okay, what are your next 3 goals?
Mm.
I want to get my car registered. I want to get it insured. I want to move out of my mum's home or out of commission home and move into private rental.
Mm.
I want to work at getting my kids back in my life. In a month's time, we look at that and see if they've achieved that, and if they haven't, what else we need to do.
Mm.
If they fall off the wagon, we've got all the mental health and drug and alcohol procedures in place that we get them help with that as well.
Mm.
So it's really a foolproof plan, but it's a no BS plan either. If you're going to come into work and you're going to expect sympathy, you're not going to get sympathy. You're going to get empathy,
Mm.
right? If you're going to come in and tell me a yarn, a story, I'll see it a mile away. If you're going to come in and you want to take the chance with both hands and run with it, we will help you to the hill. That's simple.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I saw some similar approaches in an Aboriginal drug and alcohol. There's a documentary done by somebody, and I think must be a sports or someone who's working as a boxer or something. But that's what he decided to work with the most troubled people who were affected by drugs and alcohol and police. And what you just said, Simon, is that he does not hear any
Yeah.
excuses. He said, if you got a problem,
Yeah.
talk to me. I have no problem. But there was just it's not kind of a military style, but they said just cut through the clutter and focus on what really works for you, because we know that by telling you these straight questions, it's going to work.
Yeah.
By engaging in the same behavior, it's not going to work. So I think that's really fantastic. So how many people do you work have you got in Fruit to Work now, Sam?
Prior to COVID, we had about 14 people. 14 people over 6 months turns to 28 people. We'd like to build a business up to 50 people. I think we can cover that fairly well. But the only way we can do that is by selling more fruit and milk. So the more workplaces that take us on board, every cent we make goes into giving it a chance to somebody like me.
So it's not government funded. It's a commercial.
Not at all.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody who's watching this, reach out to Simon.
I'm sure every office has coffee and tea. I'm sure every office has milk in their coffee. We don't ask for any handouts. We're not overpriced. We supply a service. Why not use us as a service and give back to the community? It costs over $350,000 a year to keep somebody in jail, right? With a 0% recidivism, we're giving back to the community every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really awesome. And I will put the link to Simon's book as well in the comment section for you to go and buy and give kudos to Simon as well. But I don't have any more questions for you, Simon. Anything else you want to ask?
Yeah. It's just sort of curious about some of the education that you did in jail. Was there any one course or book that you read that was particularly inspiring or useful to you, or is it more the act of keeping yourself learning?
Look, I really think any of the mental health programs really helped me. Just some of them were just the most minor programs, but if I took one thing out of each program, it was a success. Programs dealing with worry, dealing with emotions, dealing with grief, they really helped me. Relationships. I had lost my way, to a point that I was unrecognizable both internally and externally. So it was all a big help, and even linking in with I linked in with they had Alcoholics Anonymous. They never had Narcotics Anonymous. They had Alcoholics Anonymous. Even just linking in with those guys and going to a few meetings, I picked up this saying where the guy who was taking the class said, "Try 6 months once you're released from prison without drugs or without alcohol, and if your life is no better, go back to your shitty drugs and alcohol." That stuck in my mind. I'm going to give it 6 months. My life is starting to get better. He's telling the truth. Just little things like that.
Really practical.
Very basic, but you have to go back to basics when you've lost your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
Excellent, Simon. Thank you again, Luke. For generously coming. I know it's you've got great story to tell as well. But thank you coming on our show and sharing this story. I'm pretty sure that it would have inspired, but also give people a lot of perspective around work and happiness and resilience as well. So thank you again, Simon, for joining us, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you again.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Lovely to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
All right. Tomorrow, me and Caroline will be back on our 160th show, and tomorrow we will be taking your questions about job search, career, or even how to make your cat an Instagram superstar. So we will cover a range of topics. So please make sure that you join us tomorrow 3 p.m. and we will do this again.
Done.
Once again, thank you very much, everyone, and bye for now.
bye for now.
Bye for now.
Thank you.